start sharing my screen. Can you let me know if you see my screen? I'm going to start right now. So I want to do a little review on a presentation. Can you see my screen right now? Is it showing?
I can see it.
Okay. So a little presentation, guys, just about Nazli Tech School. Well, first of all, I'm Alicia Habibi, and I am half Nigerian, half Moroccan. And this school was actually founded by my mom, who's a medical doctor and has been working in different countries around the world. We've been traveling to different countries around the world. Hence the reason why we decided to establish this. Actually, my mom decided to establish it was because of the way there are so many schools that offer so many things. Like we can come here and talk about this, you know, this is this school, we offer this, we offer that. A lot of schools offer a lot of courses, but the most important thing is, how are these courses taught? That's one question. And the other one is, what happens after? Because most of the time when we have collaborated and met with parents from different parts of the world, not just in Africa, but also in North America, we have students there. In China, we have some students. They always want to know what happens once their students or their child graduates, it gets a certificate, what they can do, et cetera, et cetera. So what our whole program is about, it's called Cognosentia. The curriculum that we've established is Cognosentia. It is not detached from the normal curriculum that you know. So the standard curriculums that we all know is the IB curriculum, which is the American one. I'm talking about like international ones, the AP, the IGCSE, which in Nigeria, they do IGCSE from when I remember when I was in high school. And then they do WIAC as well and NECO. And then there's other curriculums from other countries, like in Rwanda, CBC, in Kenya, CBC. And so CBCs, but all in different sectors. Now, our model basically complements that. It doesn't change anything, but it complements. And it tries to stick in the same area. So basically what this means is that our model is where we take the lesson that the students are learning and we help teachers to make it more sort of interactive and realistic. So this dry, static topic that you're learning in school about balancing equations or about calculating distance or finding trigonometry, whatever it is, in reality, students don't actually know how that is applied. Hence, if you look at primary to middle school to high school students, some of them really don't understand what they're learning, but they're learning. Some of them just cram, right? They just memorize, but then they don't really understand how to apply what they're learning. And so once they get to the stage of looking for jobs, which we're seeing so many students looking for jobs, some of them want jobs online, remote jobs. You can find remote jobs, but if you're competent, if you have that it factor, that X factor, something that you possess as a person to make you stand out. So it's not just one skill, you have to possess multifaceted skills. You can't just be a developer, you have to be a designer, you have to be a marketer at the same time. Same thing goes for students who are studying STEM subjects. So I just put this in here. My mom, when she was in Nigeria, both of my parents are medical doctors. My dad is from Delta, and my mom is also a medical doctor from Morocco. And when we were there, they used to work, they run an NGO, and they were working in Yobe State. That was before whatever happened. And then they used to help a lot of the communities there. So they know, in that region, they know very well, my mom especially. And they helped a lot of the communities there with healthcare supplies and so on, so not. And the reason I'm saying that is because that was how the whole establishment of Nazli Tech School came to be. It transferred from healthcare into education and making it more practical and then investing into it. And now we have Nazli Tech School. So Nazli Tech School didn't really come into foundation until just 2 years ago. The next thing I would move on to say, which I'll skip a little bit, is so this is more about me. I'll try to put this to the side. So what exactly is the Cognosentia model? So I'll give you an example and I'll show you some of our lessons. As I mentioned already, it complements the curriculum. So whatever the curriculum is, it's flexible. It just complements it. So it provides the teachers with resources, and these resources are very, very easy to reach. So if you are a teacher that doesn't have digital access to internet, like what Mogbo Jerry was saying about the teachers and students, then it's fine, as long as you can be able to play a video at least and print worksheets, because we have lessons that complement and accompany with worksheets, because we have these worksheets on our online store. But we also have the worksheets available for teachers depending on what the teacher's domain or specialty is. So if we take a topic, for example, I can probably give, like, if it's in chemistry, let's say the teacher is teaching students, again, I'll take balancing chemical equations, and the students are learning that in class. So the class session would be to learn that first and understand the basics and what they need to know. And then our materials, like our movie video and our lab video, comes in to complement the learning, where students watch the movie video to see how that is applicable in reality. And that is integrated with a cultural society. For example, in Japan, maybe when they're measuring tofu in a tofu shop, and they have to get the exact measurements and balance of the ingredients they need or whatnot, which is something like what we have in our lesson. That's just the applicability of what they're learning in school. So they see that, and then those chemical elements that they're learning in school, they're familiar with nitrogen and so on, carbon and whatnot, are also present in that movie video that they watch, and they understand how, okay, that's how it works, and that's why we have to balance and so on. And then, of course, they have the accompanying worksheets that they need to complete that basically complements their curriculum type questions. So, for example, in WIEC type questions that are related to balancing chemical equations are incorporated in those lesson worksheets, which also relates back to the video that they just watched. So there's critical thinking and problem solving as well involved. So that's just one example. Then there's the lab videos and the lab experiments. The lab experiments are very simple. And they also bring out, because we know different type of learners. Some people are kinesthetic, some people are visual, some people are auditory, some people have all four. So kinesthetic learners prefer to do stuff, and most people prefer to do and really understand. So if there's a possibility to do the lab experiment with very simple, accessible things around, which is why we created that lab model experiment, using the apps that we create to generate such experiments that are easy to do based on the topic. The students also watch the video and they follow the instruction of the teacher, and then they practice out the lab experiment, which focuses on, again, the idea of balancing equations, and then they have the accompanying worksheets. So that's just like an example of one subject. The same thing happens for math, the same thing happens for biology, the same thing happens for physics. So if there is no accessibility to internet, then it's fine. They just need to be able to play the video or the materials that complements the topic and have accessibility to download and use the worksheets. And so we get feedback back from our teachers, and that's the reason why we have this free 1-month simulation, to be able to understand how this has helped students, because you wouldn't know the results except this thing is implemented for about 3 to 4 to 5 to 6 months. Then you can be able to know if the students have started improving, right? That's the whole point. If a student doesn't used to do very well in chemistry or biology or math, especially in a specific kind of topic, but now with the accessibility to these materials that they can, maybe some of them have access at home to internet or whatnot, and they start getting better because now they start understanding the concept they're learning in class, then that's a positive result. That shows that the educational model is successful. It is yielding positive results. So with the feedback, we always try to adjust the model and always try to make it bespoke sometimes. And what I mean by bespoke, something that would tailor more to what the teacher exactly wants the learners to know or what the students need to know per that curriculum. So that's where we go back and forth between us and the instructors or the educational institution. That's just the overview. For programming, it's something entirely different. Programming, what really happens is we have something called the Cognosentia, the CodeCrafter, because we have, I think I can go in there. I showed you this last time, Malvajori. So the CodeCrafter is one app that we use. This is one of our benchmark apps, which means it's the one that some of the schools that we collaborate with in other countries, they use this to generate programming scenarios. These are real life programming scenarios. That's for people who do programming, right? The teachers who teach it. Again, programming is not detached from reality. The main subjects that are available for most middle school and secondary students are here for selection. So what really happens is in programming, if they're learning computer science or Python programming or software engineering, and then they're also having to learn a programming language like Python or Java or whatnot, whenever you teach students how to program, you have to go from the basics. You have to teach them the structure, the syntax, and all that. So in the process of doing that, you also have to teach students how to create solutions, technological solutions, no matter how small they are. It could be just a simple ordering system in console-based for a pizza shop. It could be anything, but as a teacher, sometimes you don't really know what you're going to base it on. And you don't know how to make the connections because every class needs to be connected. So if you're teaching chemistry, you perhaps need to complement the teacher who's teaching biology. Or if you're teaching programming, you kind of need to complement the teachers that are teaching biology, chemistry, and physics. So what that means is if a student is studying something in math, maybe I'm going to say algebra, just a very broad topic, right? And they select that in their programming class. So maybe they're learning about Python because they're now doing computer science IGCSE, for example, in high school. And obviously English language, then maybe the programming language is Python because most of them, that's what they do, except they go to IB and AP. That's where they go into Java. And now what really happens is this app, when you say generating scenarios, so this is project-based learning now. This is how it complements those subjects. It generates a programming scenario that students can use to read through and break down with their teacher so that they can start critically thinking. So critically thinking about it. Like, for example, here it says mystery number solver. It says, imagine you're a junior detective trying to uncover the mystery number hidden in various everyday puzzles. Remember, I said algebra. So it's trying to, the AI basically generates a scenario that incorporates the use of algebraic equations that are going to be presented as fun challenges so that you can be able to create a game or a software app where the person who's playing it would be like a mystery solver. So anyways, they would have to read this. They would have to break down the whole pre-programming plan. And so what they're doing here is not just also programming. In our field, because I'm a software engineer, this is what we call the SDLC lifecycle. So it's design and development at the same time. So they're learning how to plan. When you're like planning something, you want to create a software app or a game app or a web app or whatever it is, you have to plan first. Then you start to create and design. So this is the planning phase. They have to critically think and they have to implement what they've learned in other classes. So in math, if they're learning algebra, they have to implement their knowledge of algebra here because this software app or game app, whatever they decide to turn it into, is connecting with that. So you're seeing that here, you're basically complementing other subjects while at the same time learning how to code because you're going to be focusing on these programming syntax, for example. So the whole thing is here, they would have to go over this with the teacher, download, review, and this is for the CodeCrafter app. For the math app, because we see a lot of students having, I'm going to go into the math because yesterday I wasn't, or was it yesterday? The last time I had a meeting with your colleague, Mobojori, this app wasn't working or wasn't showing at that point because we had to update our API. So now this app is working. This one is one of our benchmark apps and it's been helping our students a lot. I just logged into this, but usually when you go into the starting, which I'll show you in a few minutes, you'd have to log in as either a paid user or an administrator. So if you are a user, this is how you'd look at it. There's different languages. So as you change, the languages change, right? So it adjusts so that everyone can sort of use it, the main languages. Now, if we go to English, what this math does is project-based learning for math, because math education is a very complex education. And most of the time, teachers just teach the math concept, the rules, the formula. Students just cram and remember that for exam. But again, they don't really know how that's applied in reality. So I'll show you an example. First, I will choose a country. So let's say I choose Nigeria. So if I'm a teacher that's, again, I'm teaching them trigonometry, so SOHCAHTOA, so they need to know sine, cosine, and tangent. They need to be able to find missing angles using that or missing side lengths. And the students have learned the basics in class, right? Let's talk about middle school students. Let's say them, we select them. But then they don't really understand how that's working in reality. So a student will tell you, okay, in reality, how do I actually apply this? Okay, you'd say, well, if you look at this building, when you go to this place in Lagos or something like that, if you look at the angle, how the building tilts, if you want to find the exact tilt direction, you would need to apply SOHCAHTOA, for example. So that's one way, but then that's not really practical for the students. So what teachers can do is they can engage the students in project-based learning, where they would give them to do a math research. And the math research would be able to determine their gauge their knowledge based on what they've learned in class to see if they actually understood it. So if I go beginner, and then I say trigonometry. So this is how this math app would work. I had to put a math prompt. What am I trying to do research on? So SOHCAHTOA, let's say. You put whatever you want. If you have no idea, you can put suggest ideas. And the AI would generate for you something based on your selection. So basically what's going to happen is the AI is going to take the country, Nigeria, looking at the whole country, Nigeria, the culture, society, And then it will take the class level, take the difficulty level, and then take the math topic and see how it can incorporate trigonometry in any aspect of culture or society in Nigeria so that the student can research about that aspect. And as they do, they would start to explore more on how trigonometry is used there. So once we click on generate project, what would happen is that the research would break down here. And then, which we'll see in a few minutes. And then of course, the student now and the teacher needs to go over the research plan and then decide how they're going to present their math report, just like a science lab reports. So here's like mapping Nigerian landscapes, right? So imagine you are a young surveyor tasked with mapping the elevation of a hill near your school in Nigeria, or determining the height of a towering baobab tree. You need to try to measure this without climbing. So this is like the abstract breakdown of how they would do this. And then the most important thing is the research plan of how they would actually apply trigonometry, so Katua, with the angles, what they would need to do for each step of the way. And then of course the teacher has to guide them a little bit. And then what exactly is their research questions? So for you to be able to do research, you have to know the question because you would do a report. And then that's when you start to apply what you've learned, which is the trigonometry, and follow the steps. Now, one interesting thing about this is that if you go up, if you have no idea how this is going to look like a research report, you can download a sample report on this. The teacher could do this, or the student could do this. And then you can see exactly how this report needs to go. Like, what is the real life scenario? If we're talking about imagining we're a young surveyor in Nigeria. So when it downloads for you, for example, let's go back to the folder because we have some examples here, but I'll open the one that just downloaded, this one. It will look something like this for the teacher and for the student. So it will start with like a preliminary introduction, Nigeria, what exactly you're focusing on, right? The real world scenario, which is what exactly we're looking at. So it says Kano State, and you're planning to map a local terrain, right? And then it goes down into how you're going to use trigonometry, the literature review, and then finally goes into the calculation, the altitude calculation, the angle of elevation, and all that SOHCAHTOA thing that you need to apply. So this is kind of the math report that the student is expected to generate. But if they have no idea in the beginning, then it will be a sample that will be presented to them as an example. So this is where they complement what they've learned in class. And then it will be project-based learning. Either they do it in group or they do it as single-handed. So these are some of the things that we train the teachers on how to do. Because the thing is, you can have all these materials, and if you don't know how to be able to apply them in the classroom within a certain time frame as a teacher, it will not be successful, even if you have the materials. So we train teachers how to be able to use our tools and how to be able to use our materials to complement what they're learning, what they're teaching their students in classroom. And that's how you're going to get a very well-rounded, intelligent, at least, student that knows what they're doing, so that they're more efficient by the time they get into the university and they start looking for jobs. They're very highly efficient. And so everybody starts to look for talent, as they already do some now in Africa and Nigeria, but even more later on, because obviously with the AI literacy and all that. So that's the model, that's kind of the idea. And then we have our videos that you can, lesson videos that you can actually see. If you go on, let me see if I can switch back from here to our channel, so you can see in real time, if you go onto our channel and then all the social media, if you go onto the videos, the lesson videos, like I was saying, for example, for math, just to show you an idea. For math, we have so far 3 videos, because the person who creates our content is actually a Nigerian. And we provide them with the source of the content that they need to create, and then they create it. Individuals working with us. So for example, this one,
every light,
I'm gonna mute this because,
pulse.
okay, so this one was focusing on simultaneous equations. And why I want to show you this is just to show you how it's actually implemented in the videos. So simultaneous equations, how you solve it using substitution, elimination, and graphing method. And it was focusing on a situation in Singapore where they had to be able to restore power back for these light stations. And for you to be able to know that, you have to know the amount of volts. So you have to be able to create equations that will result to a final voltage power that was needed. So the whole process was, this is like an example. The students would watch this, and it's not long, it's usually short. And at the end of the day, it will also cover questions from the curriculums like IB, IGCSE as they go on acting this movie when they go into the math lab, because every math video comes with a lab. And then the students would have to like answer questions based on that. So I'm just showing you an example, right? So this is one, and there's so many other ones if you check the channel. So our simulation, what we're proposing is that we are proposing a collaboration where we do a 1-month simulation program that's free to incorporate this into an educational system for a particular niche group, whether it's primary, middle school, or high school, and to be able to provide the materials that they would be able to have access to, and probably to also train and teach just a teacher in one of these niche subjects, whether it's in math or chemistry and science, to be able to know how to use the materials properly. Because if you have the materials and you can't use them, then it wouldn't make any sense. And then at the end, we're proposing probably we might engage the students in some sort of competition. So if it's math, they might do a math project competition, which is the project-based learning that I showed you. And then we award the best student, of course, which is what we're doing right now. If you look at our school social media platforms with many students from different countries in Africa, mostly university students. And if it's science, it's the same thing. Yeah, so that's kind of the idea behind the whole thing. Yeah, that's it, guys. The rest is just the same thing I just said. This is just talking more about our different lesson series. So that's the reason why, yeah, someone raised their hand. Go ahead. Yep, I'm listening.
Okay. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Awesome. Thank you very much. Let me introduce myself. My name is Zainab Kintayo, and I work with Teach for Nigeria as the coach of Mugbojira and Ikemini. So thank you for this wonderful presentation. I mean, I was just wowed and blown away with all these things that we can actually do with AI, and what you've done with that mathematics and all that. It's something that will be useful for us and also our students that our fellows work with. I just have some question, or let me say give like a quick clarification about about what we do and about the project. I'm sure Mubujiri has discussed about this project. So they are in a 2 years fellowship, and they will have to carry out a project called a BD Change project, which is it's something that he's working on. But currently, they are working on that project, and they are working with teachers and primary school learners. But as part of their sustainability plan, they are planning on maybe the next phase of the program. We definitely work with secondary school and secondary school teachers, where all these mathematics will come into place and will be very, very useful for those teachers. But what I hear is you're offering like a 1 month simulation, and for that 1 month it will be free. So I'm assuming that after that 1 month, the teachers and the learners that they've engaged, they will have to be paying for this service. Is that what it is?
Yes, that's a very good question. Yes, so we want to come in and show what we can do so that people, people believe only when they see. And so what we do is we normally have a subscription fee, and it's a mutual benefit for both us and for the school that we're collaborating with or the educational institution. So if after 1 month you decide to continue with the model, then we sit down together and see how that's going to be feasible to set a price for the model that will be implemented. And mostly it's going to be a subscription fee that the kids perhaps would pay for through the school, and then that would be later on discussed with us and the school how that would work out. But it would be a subscription fee that would be implemented and paid to us for us to be able to release the resources. Because what really happens is that what comes with it after is we will continuously have, for a paid subscription fee with an educational institution, we will be providing continuous teacher training. We will be providing continuous sources of material that is bespoke. And bespoke means based on what the teacher needs, based on what the student needs. And also, we will be providing a funnel of opportunities that we will be supplying the school with, like where there's scholarship opportunities for students that are taking program and are really progressing very well based on the report of teachers, or there's a fellowship or conference that is a professional development for teachers, or there's an international contest where Nigeria can be represented by the students. So that's also part of the service that we provide in terms of for the learners, what they would benefit, and for the teachers during that subscription fee payment preview. But yes, after the 1 month, it will be a paid subscription model.
Okay, thank you very much for that clarity.
No problem.
So
Sure.
I just want I also want you to know that our fellows work with low income schools. So that's like public primary and public secondary school in Nigeria. And I'm so happy that you have a Nigeria background and you understand how all this is and how all this happened. So my point of view now, I know this is like a first call and I really want this collaboration. So for the payments, I'm thinking it is not something that I'm thinking it is not something that can work for our learners, because the truth is they cannot afford this. But like I said, this project it's ongoing now, just the basis for their own graduation, which will become something that they themselves will focus on. They will sustain it and they will take it to other schools beyond, after their fellowship and even beyond their fellowship. And part of their plan is that for other schools that they will be taking it to, it will be because during the project while they are still under Teach for Nigeria as a fellow, they will work with the learners, which the learners cannot pay for it, but as a sustainability plan and something that they can fall back to as a career for them too. They will now expand it to other schools that can actually pay for their service. I don't know if you understand what I'm trying to say. So for now, they are working with the public school, and believe me, they cannot afford it. But what I know is that for their sustainability plan, they will expand to other private schools, and this is where I think the collaboration can come in. The collaboration can come in while they were still in this project, while they are doing the project too. But for that payment part, it will have to be at the level where they are now expanding to private schools that can actually afford these services, and with their skills and experience with what they've done during the project with the public schools, they can now use that to share testimonies, to give testimonies of how this program have really worked, and the 1 month simulation for other private schools too, so they can
Yeah.
afford it. So that's how I
Mhm.
think this can work for now. And
Yeah.
so so maybe we just have to craft a collaboration where
Yeah.
for the public school and the projects that they are doing at the moment for the public school phase right now, where they will benefit, but we have it at the back of their mind that they cannot afford it. Even if we have some people that can, some teachers can now say, okay, I enjoyed it, I want to continue. But I'm just looking at the
Yeah.
kind of
General
teachers
scale.
and the kind of learners that we have. But for scaling, yes, it's a good idea, and I think it is something that they can leverage on, and they can also the collaboration will work. So I'm just talking from the point of being a coach to them. So
Yeah.
I also like them to see something about this. But yes, we want this collaboration. It is good for them. It is good for our organization. It is good for you. Then it is also good for them when they are scaling up. So yes, Shegun, do you want to add something?
Yeah, just sorry, before Shegun goes, I wanted to say that we were actually, now that you're talking about the collaboration, which is interesting, we definitely explore collaboration. And I was thinking that we would, when we do the first month model free simulation, and then we get the feedback and all, we get the documentation, because this is a research, we could present it to the Ministry of Education, because this is something that can be implemented in the Nigerian educational system. Like I told you, we're also doing this with Rwanda. We're working on something called Rwanda AI Trailblazers. Rwanda is going very far in tech, just like in Nigeria and AI, and also in Kenya. It's called CodeCrafter. So we're in the development phase. And I feel like, apart from what you mentioned, which is very reasonable and makes a lot of sense, also presenting it to the Ministry of Education, Minister of Education or Commissioner of Education in Nigeria as a model that can be implemented in Nigeria for both schools that are capable of having, this in terms of like they have internet, they have computers, they can do this as their independent practice, both in school and at home. And for the ones that don't have access to internet, don't have they just, paper-based. I think is something that is a flexible model, especially the fact that students are not going to only be exposed to the WIEC and NECO. They're also going to be exposed to the IB, the IGCSE, the IADs, North American known curriculums that many Nigerian students end up going to study in these countries after all later on, and get a lot of scholarship opportunities because of their level of intelligence and all that. So I was thinking that we can actually prepare that as a collaborative model where we can also go and present this to the Ministry of Education. Because I know how the educational system works. When I was in Nigeria, I was in a private school. I lived in Kaduna. I was in a school called Essence International School, which I think they must have expanded by now. And my brothers were in Zamani. So these schools were private schools. We did WIEC, we did NECO. In that sense, what you said, these are schools that you can afford, of course. But I feel like even in the schools that we finished from, such a model is useful both for public and private, and it can be implemented across the country. So yeah, that was like what I was thinking when you were saying it, but everything needs to be done first as a simulation, and then I think it moves on to the next phase.
Yes, I totally agree with you. I agree with you. And just to say that Teach for Nigeria as an organization does not also work in silos. We are an NGO, but we also work with in collaboration with the state government. Specifically for now, we are working with Ogun State government and Lagos State government, where we have our fellows. But we also collaborate with other states like Osun State, Oyo State, and many other states in Nigeria. And we're also thinking of expanding this too. So yes, I totally agree with you. But just like you said, yes, the simulation, that's where we're starting first. So
Yeah,
that is
yeah,
from
well
Shagun.
said.
Well done. I really like your idea. I like the program. Well done.
Thanks, Zainab. Okay. Yes, please, guys, go ahead. Like Zainab said, if you have anything to say, because you're the ones that are also doing the whole fellow thing. As she mentioned, you're part of this project, so feel free to say whatever you need to. Ikemini, is that how you pronounce it?
Okay, I would do that. Good evening. I don't know if it's evening over there. The pronunciation, I would give you a 50% with that. So I've heard worse
Is it
versions.
is it an Igbo name? Or is it
Nah,
Yoruba?
nah.
Okay. So it's
It's an
not Igbo,
Ibibio
not
name.
Yoruba. Okay, okay.
Yeah,
All right. Okay.
of course, Nigeria we have diverse tribes. So I'm from the southern part of Nigeria. So my tribe, we speak Ibibio. So that's a typical
Oh,
Ibibio name.
okay.
Okay,
Okay.
meaning an appointed time. Okay, thank you very much for sharing this with us. I sat quietly, listened and learned as well. So all I could hear throughout your presentation was mathematics, chemistry, physics. That's basically for secondary school. So we work, Mogbojuri and I currently, we work in the private primary schools. So how can this be useful for learners and teachers in the primary schools? That's my question, please.
Yeah, that's a very good question, Ikemini. Well, it's science. For primary, they do science. They don't do chemistry, they don't do biology and physics, but they do general science, ecosystems, adaptation. Those topics are also available. We have the lesson plans and the structure for those for both the teachers and the learners. And for math, like I said, if you looked at the Algorithmic Atlas math app, there's the primary school as well, which you'd have very basic projects for them that, again, research. It's building them to be able to know how to do research, one, and to complement what they're learning. And this helps them a lot when they want to compete in competitions in math. Like this builds that math skill that they need. So it's also available for primary students, both for science and for math. So yeah, the resources are there as well for those. But of course, we need to show this to you guys, the teachers, and explain. So there needs to be like a little teacher training session where we will say, okay, look, we take a topic, for example, this topic, then this is how, obviously you're the teacher, you know how you deliver the material in the class, but then when you want to supplement with this and these materials, this is how you go about. So, but then there are resources for primary as well. We cater from primary all the way until adult learners. Does that answer your question?
Yes, that's great. That's good.
Okay.
Thank you.
You're welcome. And Mogbojere, you have any question?
Yeah, no, so much. I just want to say thank you for the presentation. And they've all said everything. Now, what I've been saying and what I've also informed you before, that basically all of what we want to do is, for now, we are still doing a BTC based on public primary school now, which we want to take the public primary school where our BTC will take on, and how we can help the kids. And the part of also training our teachers, which is the public primary school for our teachers. And since you are saying that we are going to do a 1-month simulation, which is a recharge based to see how it is going to go. Now, the next part is after that 1-month simulation. After that 1-month simulation, so what's the next plan? I'm not just talking about the 1-month simulation and maybe the stuff. What's the next plan, like a long-term plan? Because basically what we are doing is only public schools, just to it's just to help the public school. We are in the community on what's the name? Unreserved area, or reserved area where they don't have access to basic amenities. So what's the next plan after the 1-month simulation? And I think I made mention to you that even the practical place for the primary school where we want to do it, that most of the time they don't even have access to internet or places of computer. And we are just telling you that then you gave a suggestion that if they can use like a video or something they can watch, and I said we can get something like that so that they can watch it and also learn from it. So my basic question is, what's the next plan after we've tried the 1-month simulation? Our long-term plan, what next after that?
Good question. So I was thinking, since we're collaborating on this together, when we gather all the facts and everything after the 1-month simulation completion, then we can be able to present this to, we can do the marketing where we look for sponsors. Because this is something that I see them doing in Rwanda. They look for sponsors, that is some rich Rwandans, that they are capable of sponsoring the implementation of putting in computers in schools, equipping these schools, even if we don't wait for the ministry, because I know how the ministry and how the bureaucracy is in Nigeria, same as in Morocco. So we can do the efforts on our own. It's our own model. It's something that we're collaborating on. So we can look for sponsors, people, Nigerians that are rich Nigerians, or Nigerians that want to help with, or even international sponsors that want to help with equipping a classroom for them to have access to these materials, to pay for the educational model use, That's how we can do it. We need to be able to do it to have the evidence to show, because then when you want to look for sponsors, when you want to pitch this to the Ministry of Education and whatnot, they will be able to see. Nobody is going to sponsor you or do anything, especially if they don't see what you've done, because many people can come and talk and say we can do this and that. So I think this is what the next thing, we need to arrange it very well, organize it very well, so that at the end we have all the evidence, the testimonials, like Zainab mentioned, from the students, from the teachers, from the parents, the results showing in their actual performance. At least it's 1 month, but there should be some sort of positivity showing somehow that we can gauge. And also perhaps we can be able to connect some really high achieving students, because usually the students that are coming from less privileged backgrounds are very intelligent and high achieving. So maybe we can help funnel from our side, from Nazli Tech, a student maybe to be able to participate in a competition, and maybe that student wins, who knows. And that's also something you can put at the end as well, as part of this result of this whole 1 month simulation, or at least how it's going to look like. And then from there we can do the marketing together, publishing on our platforms, social media platforms. And people tend to see these type of things and they tend to relate to it very well. And then we start to get sponsors and we start to collaborate on how we organize and share everything in terms of we plan how we're going to share the benefits, both financially, both professionally, and most importantly, how we're going to benefit these kids or these institutions in Nigeria to build a IT lab, have internet, have some computers, and maintain it. Because I know in Nigeria, maintenance is a problem. You can install something and then after one month it deteriorates. So we need to continue the maintenance. So it's a long-term plan. But I think the first thing to do is to, first of all, make sure this works and executes properly without any problem. And for us to do this, we have to be organized. So we have to know exactly what the learners are who the learners are going to be for this 1 month. What is the age like? What is the subject? Which teachers? And then we can now draft the plan and put it into motion. So, and then we give the access to the resources and we train the teachers maybe for the first 1 week before the 1 month starts, or the 2 weeks. And then now we can go into the 1 month simulation. You see where I'm going with that, right? I think it's more of the exposure. So I've seen this in Rwanda. They're doing it very well. They're getting a lot of sponsors, but because they're actually showing what they're doing, that's why they're getting people sponsoring and helping and funding all these things that need to be funded without waiting for the ministry alone. Yeah,
Wow.
thank you.
All right, go on.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you very much. I've actually sat down, listened. Everything's actually nice. So far, you've showed me that we have platform for the primary school learners. So if we are to go on with this, we would probably be doing, right now, the learners are getting ready for the examination, and the term will close in 2 weeks. Yeah. So we won't have that 1 month immediately. So it will be when we resume for the third term that would have that 1 month simulation plan.
Okay. And when will
Okay.
that be? Like, will you guys get back to us on that, or what's going to be like the next thing? Will you send us the dates that we can do it, then the focus, the learners, the subject? How would that be like? Like, what happens from here? The next step from your side?
Can I say something?
Sure.
Okay, so I'm thinking after this call, we should go back. So that by we, I mean Shegun, Mogbujiri, and Ekemini. Then also we should go back, then have a meeting, have discussion about this. Then Shegun will reach out to you. He'll reach out to you to fix another time for a meeting. But
Okay.
before that, you have to give like prompt of discussion, that, okay, so moving forward, so these are the things that maybe like questions or something that you
Okay.
want us to
I
brainstorm or
require.
reflect on. So you give prompts that we'll discuss on. So when we come back on the call,
It
we'll
makes
discuss
sense.
on this and all that. Then so Kemini's point is also valid, but I also think from this point that during holiday we can use that time as a planning phase to prepare for the simulation, so that when the school resume, we'll have all our plan in motion, we'll have the next thing that we want to do and all that. Then just kickstart the simulation, maybe like 2 weeks after resumption or so. So yeah, so let's just go back, talk as a team, get back to you, fix another day for as a next meeting, but you provide the prompt that will be discussed, so that when you are asking question, they will be giving you relevant answers.
Yeah,
They
that
will,
makes sense.
so
That makes a lot
yeah.
of sense, Zainab. Yeah, and I definitely agree. Because when we have the responses to these questions, then we can now tell you, okay, these and these and these resources will be available. So these teachers, we need this teacher and that teacher, so we can be able to train and teach them, or at least just show them what they need to do and how they can make use of it and where they can access it, et cetera, et cetera. Okay, definitely. So, Mogbojori, then